Hey guys, welcome back to the EU4 Guide of Guides, where we guide you through guiding your guides. And this is how you get guided, to be a guide of guides. So, let's see. What are we learning? We did this one, and we didn't do this one. Okay. At the top, I think, yeah, at the top of the diplomacy window, you see the king of that nation. And in this case, it's our nation. So it's tempting just to ignore this and be like, well, who cares, because I already saw this on the other window. But this stuff right here is actually kind of useful, and it doesn't appear on other nations. Like, see how they don't have the same window? So on your country, this is your number of diplomatic relations. I currently have 0 people. I have no nations that I am making relational babies with, and I have 4 available diplomatic relations. Now anytime you're not using a diplo slot, that's potential like strength that you don't have, because if, for example, I got attacked right now, no one would come help me, and I wouldn't be able to get allies after I get attacked. So you always want to ally 4 people as quick as you can. Now, because we start at war with Albania, no one's going to really accept our alliance offers, because they're going to be like, you're at war, so let's go to Timmy. See how Timmy has a green heart and he's friendly, and up here it says that his personality is an administrator, and you're like, hey Timmy, be my ally, and you mouse over this little red X and it says, I'm sorry, but we don't like you and you're at war. And you say, well, why don't you like me? And it's because we're competing great powers. Now, the competing great power thing just means that up here, this number is 8 or lower, and right now it's 18th. Oh no, that's our total score rank. Okay, so see how it says we're 7th in administrative, 25th in diplo, and 9th in military. I think we count as a great power if any, I don't know, I think we have to be within the top 8 of score gain per month. And score gain per month comes from administrative stuff, which means how big is your nation, how much money are you earning, diplomatic stuff, which means how big is your navy, how many naval generals do you have, kind of thing, how much trade income are you getting, how many friends do you have, and how strong are your friends, and how much do your friends like you. Whereas military rank comes from how strong is your army, did you just win a war, do you have lots of generals with lots of, troops and stuff. So most people don't pay any attention to score unless you just specifically want to pay attention to score for funsies. It's just like, it doesn't mean anything, but it's like you can play the game for score, and that gives you a goal. Just like any sandbox games, they give you all these opportunities to pick a thing to go for. And that's one of the things, if you want to, that you can go for. But it's not like, it doesn't come into it except for as an artificial outside the game goal that you can shoot for if you want to. Anyway, so I can't make any allies right now because I'm at war. So if I wanted to ally Naples, they're like, I'm sorry, negative 3,000 because you're at war. So we got to finish our war before we can ally anyone. But underneath our doesn't have any diplomatic relations thing, we see our diplomatic reputation. Currently we have 1 diplomatic reputation from our legitimacy and none from anywhere else. You can get additional diplomatic reputation from a statesman, like this dude will give us +2 diplomatic reputation for a total of 3. Like, he'll triple our diplo reputation, so he's very valuable. You can get some from ideas, you can get some from events. So diplomatic reputation is important, and it's hard to come by, but you can get it somewhere. And right here is your improved relations thing that is entirely right now coming from my prestige. Again, you can get this from various sources, but I don't even think improved relations is useful. It just makes it quicker to improve relations with somebody, but I don't care how long that takes. I usually can improve relations with everyone I want to eventually. Down here you got a list of enemies. These are people who have dedicated themselves to see you die for a minimum of 10 years. They've said, over the next 10 years, my primary focus will be to see the Ottomans dead. Hungary, Lithuania, Venice, and the Mamluks all want us to die. And underneath that is our rivals. These are the people, you get to pick 3 people that you want to die, right? Now, you're rewarded for hurting your rivals, even if you do so in a way that doesn't help you at all. So giving money to somebody that a rival of yours is fighting in a war will gain you, not prestige so much, but power projection, which is like similar to prestige. Funding rebel armies in the middle of a country that you have rivaled will give you power projection, and funding privateers, pirates, to steal some of their money will also get you power projection. So rivals and power projection are intricately tied together, and that's what that is, and we'll talk more about that when I can actually do it. Down here is just a list of all of the, the diplomatic relations you have. So right now this is a list of all the people we have Casus Belli against. So Ak Kuyunlu, which is this where is he? Where's Ak? This is this blue guy, Ak. But you're never really going to look down here, right? It tells you when truces are going to be up, and who's improving relations with you, and who you're improving relations with. And all of that is theoretically interesting information, but it changes so often and so readily that it just would take forever to look through this screen every time. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the diplomatic map mode that gives us all the exact same information, but gives it to us super quickly. So you can just see anyone with green stripes through it are the people that we have Reconquest CBs against, because those are all of our cores. They've been kind of taken from us by these people, and we need to get them back. Give them back! Like that. It also shows who we're at war with and stuff. Also, if we want to see when the truce with Venice is up, I think we can just right-click on Venice and say, look at their truce timer instead of ours. Because if you're playing the game correctly, you're going to have a ton of truce timers all the time, because you're going to be attacking someone, then attacking someone, and attacking someone. You know, tons of truce timers all going at once. Also, up here is a list of all the truce timers that are going to expire within the next 5 years. It looks like all of our truces are going to expire within the next 5 years. Ottomans were busy before the game started fighting in the West. Now the same, you can have a list of your neighbors, a list of your enemies, a list of your friends, a list of human players, and a list of all nations. You can filter it. You can say, I want to see only nations that begin with A. AB, AB, AD. All nations that have AD in them. But honestly, I only use this list to get a list of my neighbors. And I often just get a list of my neighbors and look at their opinions, and anyone whose opinion is between 0 and -100, I'll improve relations with them, just to try and make sure all of my neighbors like me. Because any neighbor that doesn't like you for too long will eventually start to plot your downfall, and that's no fun. It's always easier to keep people friendly than it is to make someone who hates you stop hating you, because hatred is a commitment in this game. Once you've set someone as your enemy, they're your enemy for a minimum of 10 years. So, you want to make sure they'd never set you as their enemy in the first place. So, improving relations with various people you can do pretty easily from this neighbors list. Neighbors list. It'd be cool if I could do neighbors minus enemies, but you can just eyeball it. Anyone with less than 100. Okay. Same window is actually used when talking to other people. So if you right click on Serbia, it brings you to this same tab, but now the tab has a different meaning. It gives you a list of all the things you can do to Serbia, and gives you a little check mark or a red X depending on whether or not they would accept such a proposal, which is so much more convenient than every other game that includes diplomacy I've ever seen. I hate playing games now that have you can propose an alliance to any of 5 different people, and none of them tell you whether or not they would accept until you do it. So it would be like click, 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 no. Click, 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 no. Click, 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 no. Click, 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 yes. Oh, I got an alliance. It's like, that. Why? Why would you do that to me? Just tell me up front who is willing to be my ally, and why not, and stuff. I just love the diplomacy, the way that this game does diplomacy. It's much, much better than every other game I've tried that does diplomacy at all. A lot of games, it's not even worth looking at diplomacy because it's just that tedious. These guys would take a royal marriage with me. That's how royal marriagey they are. Kind of weird. Because we can't royal marry Orthodox people. So they're like, we would totally royal marry you. Like, no, it's business. No, it's business. You just have to be Orthodox first. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so the diplomatic options you're going to use most often, offering military access to your allies will cause them to come into your nation and fight your rebels for you, which is amazing. You should do that whenever there's a green thing next to it. You should just always do that, because it doesn't commit you to a long-term relation with them. So if I offer military access to Austria and they accepted, I would not gain Austria as 1 out of 4 in my relations slots. But if I went to Austria or Wallachia and I said, give me military access to your country, then I would use up one of my relations slots. So only ever do that if you actually need to walk through the country, and then immediately cancel it once you're done walking through the country, because it's a waste of a slot to just gain military access to someone. Gaining military access to someone will give this second one their opinion of you plus 10. So currently Wallachia has a minus 38 opinion of me, and I have a minus 40 opinion of them. If I were to gain military access, then this would go to minus 28. Economic actions, transfer trade power, it's not super helpful, but it does give you a little bit of opinion for free, so it's something you're going to do a lot of, even though it's not really like that important. And transfer trade power is kind of misleading, because it seems like they're going to transfer a certain percentage of their trade power to you, but really they're only going to transfer a certain percentage of their trade power to you in nodes from which you are collecting or steering actively with a merchant. Because it'd be weird if, like, I convinced Brunswick to transfer trade power and I suddenly got power in a node that I'm not doing anything in. Like, well, that would just be wasted power. I don't need that power. Send gift. This costs more the more the country that you're sending the gift to makes on their own. It's based on their income, and it's just a little bit of an opinion boost. And you'll use that only rarely. Like, you give money to your vassals all the time, because your vassals fight wars for you, man. So the more money they have, the better they'll be at fighting wars for you. It's like a free manpower pool, right? Giving subsidies is a great way to get power projection in the early game. If you look at who's at war with your rivals and then just give them subsidies, you'll gain power projection as well as helping that person to win the war. So for example, in the extremely early game, Muscovy, which is right here, we can't actually see them, will always fight Novgorod, which is right here, we can't actually see them, and will always win. But if you give huge subsidies to Novgorod, then they'll be able to afford a much bigger army, or to afford to have a much higher percentage cavalry in their existing army than they normally would, which means that they'll win that first fight, which means that they'll beat Muscovy, which means that you can really hurt Muscovy without ever having to send any troops or do anything. So giving subsidies to people is really cool. It also builds up to a total of plus 15 opinion with them over time, and it will last as long as the subsidies last. So if you want to theoretically commit right now to giving a tiny subsidy to France for the rest of the game, you can hold shift and click on this and say for 400 years they'll give you a 0.1 subsidy, and just forget about it. Like, you can cancel it at any time, but if you don't cancel it, it'll very slowly increase the opinion of France, only 0.06 per year. But over the course of 100 years, that'll, you know, that'll be like plus 6 opinion with France. Yay! And I don't know how the AI works, but I would suspect that that just kind of gives them a little reminder that you care about them and that you're someone that they should think about. I really suspect that this list, the list of people currently improving relations with you, is something the AI pays a lot more attention to than the players. Here's that guy. So if you want someone's opinion of you to change, like, remember there's a green heart next to the Timurids' opinion of me, and a green heart next to the QQs, but there's a little dagger next to the opinion of the Mamluks, because they're one of my enemies. The dagger means enemies. Whereas Ramazan has some chess pieces, meaning they're threatened by me. They think that I might try to kill them, so they're gonna like try to get on my good side so that I don't kill them. And the green heart next to Dulkadir means that they would love to help me in any of my endeavors. This guy's threatened, so he'll play nice, but he won't actually help me. Like, he'll ally me, but if we got into a war, he wouldn't send any troops, kind of thing. Like, he just wants to make sure I don't kill him. He's not going to try to help me to kill other people, because the weaker I am, the less threatening I am to him, right? So that distinction between defensive, threatened, friendly, neutral, and enemies or whatever is very important and very cool. Done way better than I think any other game's ever done it that I've seen. I like the little threatened or defensive things. I'm looking for someone who feels defensively. Defensive is like, threatened is like, I'm worried you're going to attack me, so I will play nice. Whereas defensive is like, I like you, I don't think you're going to attack me, but I think that you would be a great resource to help me defend myself against someone else, you know? So for example, if I rivaled Hungary and Austria rivaled Hungary, then Austria might feel defensively towards me, meaning they don't want me to expand. They're Catholic and I'm Sunni. They don't give a crap about how strong I am. But they like me, and they would come to my defense if Hungary ever attacked me because they want to hurt Hungary. Right? So it's a distinction between I like you or I just like you more than I like Hungary. Hungry hippos are bad, and you're much better than bad. Anyway, that's diplomacy to an extent. Loan offer, this only works with players, it doesn't work with AIs, so don't even bother. Sell province is quite useful. Sell ship, also quite useful. Issue embargo. So embargoes are stupid. Basically, if I embargo somebody, okay, so go to my tribe. You know what? Why don't you just never do embargoes, and then you'll know everything you need to know about embargoes. Basically, you can only embargo somebody who is your rival for free. Anyone that you embargo who's not your rival, it costs you money to embargo them, because you're like investing money and reducing their money. And if you're willing to pay money to hurt another nation, then they should be your rival. So you should embargo all of your rivals, and you should never embargo anyone but your rivals. So it should just automatically happen. I feel like setting someone to rivalry should automatically embargo them, since it's free when they're... Anyway, I think it's dumb that distinction even exists. But anyway, what would happen if I embargoed Byzantium without rivaling them is that my trade power would drop from 58.9 down to like 56.9, and theirs would drop from 60 down to like 55 or something. So not only does it hurt both them and me, but it doesn't hurt either of us very much. So embargoes aren't super useful. If I embargoed, for example, the knights, though, it would drop theirs all the way to 0, and it wouldn't drop mine almost at all, because they don't have very much trade power here, and I have a lot. So you could theoretically get all these little guys out of your trade node by embargoing them, but I think it would add up. If you embargoed like 5 little guys, you'd eventually be hurting yourself more than you were helping yourself, because that would just continually increase the contribution in the node of Byzantium, who isn't spending some of his trade power embargoing people. Anyway, I don't know why I said you don't need to know about embargoes and then told you about all about embargoes. Covert actions. Fabricate claim you're going to use all the time. Remember, the diplomatic map mode shows you all the provinces that you can take basically for free. You can add provinces to the list of provinces you're allowed to take basically for free by fabricating claims on them. So for example, if I fabricate a claim against this province, it says, if we are discovered, then these are the people who will be upset. Trebizond, the person I'm fabricating against, would get minus 18 AE against me, which would decay at a rate of about 2 per year, maybe 3 per year. Byzantium would get minus 10. Georgia and Circassia would get minus 14, and so on and so forth, all the way down to like France would only mine by 1 or something. My likelihood of being caught is 1.63 per year, and it takes a whole year to, or per month, and it takes a whole year to fabricate. So I'm very unlikely to be caught. What's after that? Support rebels. Support rebels is really good. For 2 reasons. First, you can declare war on anyone that has rebels in their nation that you're supporting. So if you notice that Serbia has a giant rebel stack in Raska, you can support those rebels and then attack Serbia in support of those rebels, and then cause those rebels to enforce their demands and be like, what's up now? Like that, just for fun. So like, for example, if there were Sunni zealots, the Sunni religion is my religion and the Orthodox religion is their religion. If there were Sunni rebels in Serbia who wanted Serbia to be Sunni instead of Orthodox, I could declare war in support of them and help them to convert the whole country to Sunni, and then they would be Sunni, and they would be much more likely to ally me in the future because they'd be the same religion as me. Or if there were rebels that wanted to take all of the provinces of Wallachia and give them to me, I could support those rebels, and they would successfully take all of the provinces of Wallachia and give them to me. So some nations like Byzantium, who have lots of cores throughout another nation that's more powerful than them, will really live and breathe on support rebels. Most nations, you'll be using support rebels just as a way to get power projection, just to hurt your rivals, and occasionally as a way to possibly gain a couple provinces, but mostly support rebels isn't something you're going to do a lot of. It's really cool though. I like the idea. All the rest of this stuff: justify trade conflicts, sow discontent, sabotage reputation, infiltrate administration. Those are things you just won't do. They belong to the espionage idea group over here. Espionage. And this idea group is like the worst idea group in the game. So no one ever takes it. So you won't take it. So you don't need to know what those things do. Okay. Dynastic actions. Royal marriage and claim throne are kind of tricky. Basically, if you're Catholic, you can royal marry other Catholic nations. And that is like a commitment that for the duration of the life of whoever married whoever else, until one of those two people dies, you guys are kind of tied together. You can't fight each other without it costing stability. So it's kind of like a guarantee that you're not going to fight for a while. And then there's an influence option actually called Proclaim Guarantee that does the same thing, except without making random little kids get married to each other. So it's interesting that both options exist. I would avoid using royal marriages altogether with people unless you know that you want to be their ally for a long time. So like if you wanted to ally someone small like Wallachia and use them to beat up someone else small like Serbia, and then you were going to ditch Wallachia afterwards, don't royal marry them. Not that you can. I mean, those guys are the wrong religion, but you know what I mean. So be careful who you marry because it's hard to break marriages. You can break marriages for free if you finish the diplomatic idea group, and you can break marriages for free if you become pope. Other than that, it's going to cost you one stability, or you're going to have to wait until that person dies. Send a warning. It's super powerful, very underused, hard to remember to use because there's no little pop-up reminding you to do it again. But if I warn, for example, Bosnia, then they won't be able to attack Serbia without me getting to come in on Serbia's behalf and kill Bosnia. So warning just means don't attack anyone that is my neighbor. My neighbors are under my protection from you. Don't attack my neighbors. So you should really, honestly, you should always warn everyone. There's no reason not to. But I never do. Most people never do because, you know, it's tedious and who'd want to do that? It's dumb. Send insults. Only ever do this if you get the quest. Or if... like, for example, if you have 100 relations with Serbia, like a plus 100 relations with them because you were trying to make them your ally, and then you get a casus belli, a cause of war, to attack them and take one of their provinces, and you're like, well, I guess I'm not going to make them my ally, I'll just kill them. You'd have to send an insult just to make them not like you anymore, because if they still like you, you get a -1 stability for attacking people that you like, or people that like you. But you have to insult them so they don't like you anymore, and then you can beat them up. But mostly insults are, you only use them when you get the quest to use them. And under influence, this is a really important one. Offer vassalization and establish and request protectorate and enforce peace. Enforce peace allows you to join a war defensively on behalf of anyone who likes you. So if I were to improve relations with Austria by up to like 150, and then France was to attack Austria, and we weren't allies, just because we like each other, even though we're not allies, that's enough of a justification for me to tell France, leave Austria alone or I'm going to join them in their war. And if France says, go ahead, then I get to join them in their war and fight against France, even though there's no reason for me to be fighting against France. So enforced peace can be really cool. It's often very hard to predict who's going to attack who past the first like 15 years of the game and use it properly to get into wars that you really want to be in. So, like for example, if I wanted to kill Bohemia, but they're so far away, there's no way for me to justify going to war with Bohemia, what I'd need to do is improve relations with everybody around Bohemia, specifically Bohemia's enemies. So this is a list of the people Bohemia is enemies with. If I improved relations with Bavaria, Poland, and the Teutonic Order up to over 100, then next time Bohemia goes to war with one of those people, I could enforce peace against Bohemia and kick their butts. But it takes a lot of, you know, predictive brain juices to do that, so most people probably don't, and I know I definitely don't very often enforce peace. The cool thing about enforcing peace is you can do it even while you don't have a king. Normally when you don't have a king, you just can't play until a new king comes about. It's called a regency council, and what happens is if your king is like 3 years old, a regent is appointed to rule in his stead, but that regent doesn't have the same powers of an actual king, so he can't declare war on anyone, so you just can't declare any wars. But you can still enforce peace, so you can just improve relations with lots of people and then come and defend them, in quotes, defend them. So that's cool. And then offer vassalization. I think I've already talked about what vassals are. They give you half your money and they fight with you in wars as if they were, you know, your own troops, except you don't get to move them around. Vassals are really cool, and if you can get a vassal peacefully, it's amazing. It's awesome. It's great. You should do it. Peacefully vassalize anyone. Mostly people will only allow you to peacefully vassalize them if they're very, very small and they have the same religion as you, and you improve their relations up to 190, and then they'll do it. The bigger you are, the more likely people are to want to be under your wing, and the smaller they are relative to you, the more likely they are to want to be under your wing. So yeah, that's all the diplomacy stuff. Diplomacy is done. We got ourselves economy. I think we've already talked to death, right? Advisors cost $1 in the very beginning of the game. By the end of the game, even a +1 advisor is going to cost $5, like 5 times as much. So over the course of the game, advisors get more and more expensive. Interest, you know what interest is on loans. Harbor fees. Oh, paying back a loan. Paying it back ahead of time or letting it pay back automatically costs exactly the same amount of money either way. So there's actually no benefit to paying back loans early, but I still just always do it because I don't want to accidentally spend that money on something else and then not have it available when I need it. Harbor fees is just like if I wanted to protect trade in Venice because I thought I could get a lot of money out of the Venice trade node, I'd have to pay Ferrara enough money to let me land my ship in Ferrara, and then I could send a bunch of ships over there and protect Venice and collect from trade in Venice. And I'd pay Ferrara a certain amount of bucks a month in order to be able to use that harbor. And honestly, people don't do it very often. Requesting fleet basing rights is something people mostly only use in order to get to India, and then once they're in India and they've conquered a province, you just don't need to do it anymore. I have occasionally paid for harbor fees in order to send pirates against my enemies. Like if you are able to rival China, but you don't have any bases anywhere near China to send pirates against them, you could pick someone near China, get fleet basing rights, and then send pirates over there to go raid the Chinese coastline with their piracy. But yeah, it's more of a novelty than something you actually do. Diplomatic expenses, I'm sending $0.1 a month to France as subsidies, right? We're not supporting any rebels. We are not paying vassal fee to any overlords. We do not have any tariffs, and we're not paying any war reparations. Colonial maintenance, obviously colonies. Missionary maintenance, obviously missionaries. Army maintenance is a big one. Okay, so let's look at this for a sec. I'm gonna up the game speed, fight myself a battle, and win. Okay, so you saw how right when that battle ended, my army maintenance jumped from 8 to 9.12. Now the reason that happened is because some of these soldiers died and I need to replace them. The cost of replacing 1,000 soldiers is half the cost of hiring 1,000 soldiers. So currently we have 1,033 dead soldiers that need to be replaced. That's going to cost us 1,032 manpower, but it's also going to cost us $5 over the you know, however long it takes to replace them. So we're going to pay $5 to replace those soldiers, and that's why the army maintenance went up. So you got to be careful about this. During a war, you can expect your army maintenance, like theoretically, if you have an army that costs $1,000, oh, let me look at this again. So this guy costs 10 to buy and 0.2 per month to maintain. So 50, it costs 50 times as much to buy him, 50 months worth of salary to buy a new soldier. And if it costs half that to replace a soldier, then theoretically if all of your soldiers died, I hear crying upstairs, then you'd pay 25 times as much money to replace them as you did to pay them a monthly salary. So like you should have enough money stockpiled so that when you do go to war, you're expecting this money to go up dramatically every time you fight a battle. And it'll only go up for a couple of months while you pay the money it required to replace those soldiers, but it will go up and you will have to pay for that. So keep that in mind, yo. Fleet maintenance, exactly the same thing. When you repair fleets, it costs a little bit of extra money. Actually, no, it doesn't. I lied. Fleet maintenance will always stay the same. Notice how my mothballed Navy is only costing 0.37, but if I unmothballed them, it would cost a bunch of extra money. Mothballing them makes their health slowly decrease until it gets down to 20%, and then if I ever want to fight with them, I have to wait 5 months for them to build back up in strength before I can send them out to go fight people. Spoils of war and war reparations and subsidies and harbor fees. You will be subsidized by the AI often. If you fight France, all of France's rivals will subsidize you because they don't want to fight France and they are hoping you kill France for them. So often Castile or England or Portugal or Austria or Savoy or anyone near France will just give you tons of money. If you're a very small nation, this can actually be, you'll actually make more money per month from subsidies than you do from your entire budget. Like you might have $3 a month coming in and you get subsidized for 10 or something. Same with Russia. Any large rich nation is just going to throw money around supporting the people that hate the people that they hate. And I think that's awesome. I think it's really cool and I like it and it's good times. Spoils of war is mostly looting and piracy. So basically, recently I was playing as Bavaria and France attacked Savoy. Austria came in to defend Savoy. So this nation and this nation against this big blue nation, right? They called me in, I came, and they called in Poland and Lithuania, these two giant nations out here. So I waited until all the armies of all the other nations were fighting over here in the Swiss Alps, these mountains. See, gray is mountains, so all this gray territory. So fights in mountains take a long time and are very costly and annoying. So when that happened, I took all my armies and I spread them out over here across the blue territory, and I just looted all their land. You can picture like the armies are away, so now you're all just going to get looted and all your money is mine. So looting the Ile-de-France, this is a 15 base tax province. You get $15 every 6 months for just keeping one soldier standing on this province. So if I put one soldier here, one soldier here, one soldier here, one soldier here, and just spread them out across all the French provinces, I made $200 from looting France, and my income per month at that point was about $6 a month. So I made 200 in like 2 months. So looting is very profitable, but it's also very risky. All of those soldiers died, but replacing them was, you know, there was only 9 soldiers. It only cost me $90 to replace them, and I earned $200 from looting, so it was totally worth it. It's good times. The way looting works, you can't loot a province that's adjacent to a province you have access to. So, for example, if I were at war with Serbia, I would only be able to loot Zeta, and that's it. Because this one's next to me, next to me, next to me. Whereas if I was at war with Hungary, I could loot every single province except for Thames. So fighting Hungary would be very profitable for me. Because what I do is completely crush their army and then just spread out and loot and then just wait forever while I soaked up their money. Be like, soak it in. Feel the money. That's what spoils of war means. Trade. We've already talked about trade. If you want to get more in depth on trade without fully having to understand it, what you should do is sort by this one, your personal current trade power, and then just send a dude to collect from the one with the most trade power, and then send a dude to collect from the one with the second most trade power, and that will almost always give you the most money you can possibly get. Other than that, this is all the descriptions of trade, and trade is really interesting and cool. I've done other videos on trade. I'll make sure to add them to a playlist or something, but you don't need to know much about trade. It's super profitable late game. It's not profitable until then, and you don't need to think about it until then. This is just tech. You get a neighbor bonus. This number up here, that will go from 0 up to plus 25% depending on how far behind in tech you are. So it's very advantageous to be behind in tech, because it makes techs cheaper. So as your monarch points build up at 8 per month for me, or at 3 per month for England, because screw England, you're eventually going to get a little pop-up that says you now have enough to invest in the next level of a certain technology. Don't click it. Don't invest in the next technology right away. Right click that pop-up so that it goes away, and then wait until one of these numbers gets up to 9.99 and then invest in that technology. Because you'll get the technology for 5 or 10 or 15% cheaper if you wait long enough. The only exceptions to this is if you're actively fighting in a war that you're not sure you can win, you want to get ahead in military technology, not behind. But other than that, you always want to be behind in tech if you can, because there's always really beneficial things you can spend your monarch points on other than actually teching up. Being ahead in tech does give you a minor boost to production efficiency and tax efficiency. So if you're ahead of your neighbors in tech on admin, you get like plus 10% taxes, which is plus like 3% total for your, you know, like, because remember about 30% of my money comes from taxes, so it'd be like plus 3% total money. It's not enough to justify the waste of monarch points, so fall behind on tech and be proud of it. This is your tech group. I'm the Ottoman tech group. You can see this cute little hat with a tech symbol next to it. These guys are an Eastern tech group. You can see their little Eastern hat. And these guys are the Western tech group. And then over here you got a tribal nomad tech group, right? Circassia and Georgia are Eastern. Golden Horde is tribal. This guy should be tribal. There's some guys in India are probably Indian, right? So different tech groups have different penalties to teching up. So like, for example, by the end of the game, China should be 25 techs behind France or something. So basically, stick to Western, Eastern, or Ottoman tech groups. Anyone below that, if you're below that tech group, then you're going to be playing kind of a different game. If you want to play, for example, a Muslim tech group guy like these guys, that's fine. Just know that if you ever fight someone over here, you're going to lose. So you'll be very strong if you go east, you'll be very weak if you go west. And that's true for basically everyone of any tech group ever. So always attack east unless you're western, in which case you can do whatever you want. The eastern tech group penalties are very minor. So eastern guys can easily compete with western guys. But anyone other than eastern and western, like even the Ottomans, 25% tech malice is a big deal. Costs 25% more for techs. Luckily, we start with an insanely good king, so we're not going to fall behind in tech at all. But we're dumping 25% more tech points into staying even than other countries would. Ooh, 36 minutes, man. We're doing good. So the next tab is ideas, and that is going to take a half an hour to talk about all by itself, I would guess. So we'll end there.